Hey, what's up guys, TheJordude here, back again with another Shadowverse video. I'm going back to reviewing the cards in Fortune's Hand. In my previous review of Fortune's Hand, I kind of misread a few cards. So this time I'm going to be taking a couple more seconds in reading the cards, making sure I process it in my head correctly, so I could give a proper review about that. And yeah, today we're going to go over like 10 cards again. I think it's basically until the end of Havencraft I'm going to be able to cover. So yeah, before we get into it though, you might notice this sweet Bloodcraft hoodie. It's a Bloodcraft on the back here, which is kind of like a merch that I'm currently working on. Right now this is just a sample. I need to test out the design and the hoodie quality, so this is not the final piece yet. I'm still working on it, so it's still going to be some time until I could drop it. But yeah, it's super comfortable. If you like Bloodcraft, you might like this one. But yeah, anyways, let's get into the cards. So the first card we have is this Forestcraft card, Chipper Skipper. 4 play points, 4/3, evolves into a 6/5. Accelerate 1, summon a fighter. Can only accelerate if a follower was played this turn. Whenever you play a card using its accelerate effect, summon a fighter and evolve it. That's just its regular effect, and of course the fighter is just the 2/2. Alright, so looking at this card's actually really powerful in my opinion. How many accelerate cards are in Forest? Because we already got Leono, Woodland Shadow, which is also an accelerate card. Although it has a condition where it's going to accelerate when you evolve in a follower this turn. So depending on how many accelerate cards are going to be available for Forestcraft, we might see some kind of accelerate deck. I guess you can't really make an accelerate deck. There's not much stuff that support it, but maybe it kind of just goes in with like control forest you could play, because accelerating 1, so you gain a bunch of 1-cost cards you could play and combo with cards like Windfall Fae. This also kind of works with like the Hangman, because Hangman, like, he has the ability when you play if 3 cards were played this turn, he gets the +3/3 on its evolve effect. And this card is like a accelerate 1, so it is something that you could easily do to set up your Hangman. It is a 4-cost follower, however, so getting the accelerate 1 sometimes is a little bit tricky, I would say, because the problem with accelerate, sometimes you want to use the accelerate effect, but you have too many play points, so you can't actually use the accelerate. You have to play cards beforehand, and that kind of makes your turns a little bit awkward, and that's kind of what keeps accelerate in balanced, I think. So you have to get under 4 play points to use this accelerate 1 ability. So I mean, it already has the effect. You have to play a follower, so that kind of compensates for it. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a tricky card to use, I think. However, just for the accelerate, but just the normal 4 play point body, and you can accelerate with it. If you play an accelerate with it, it could be quite good. But yeah, I think I see this card with a lot of potential. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 because I think it could be fit in some kind of control forest deck, or we might be seeing some kind of mid-range deck with like Wolf Hangman, or maybe if there's more accelerate support, maybe there's going to be some kind of accelerate deck. But I think it's a solid card, so yeah, I think it's a 4 out of 5. Alright, so next card going into Bloodcraft, we have the 9 play point, 16 losing Temperance, 7/7 evolves to 9/9. Accelerate 0, put an Unselfish Grace into your hand. If avarice is active for you, put an insatiable desire into your hand instead. When this card's on the board, it has the effects, can't be targeted by enemy effects, and while it's in play, you can't take more than 1 damage at a time. And whenever your leader takes damage, reduce the enemy leader's max defense by 3. And that ability is not capped, so you could actually keep reducing your opponent's leader's defense, depending on how many times you take damage on the turn. So the original accelerate 0, put Unselfish Grace into your hand. You could get a 3 play point amulet, which countdown 5, restore 1 defense to your leader at the end of your turn. If you have more evil points than your opponent, restore 2 instead. Last word, summon a 4/4 version of the Losing Temperance, and I assume it evolves into a 6/6. And then if you had Avarice active, you could get this card off your accelerate, which gives your leader the following effects. At the start of your turn, draw a card. At the start of your turn, lose 1 play point. and these effects are not stackable. So I'm actually not too sure about this card if you're losing a permanent playpoint orb or if you're just losing the playpoint on that turn, because it kind of matters. Like if you play this on say turn say you played on turn 3, right, and then you played this card, would you permanently just be stuck at 3 playpoints for the rest of the game because you -1 at the start of your turn but you're gaining 1? Or do you continue to gain your max playpoint orbs until you hit 10? It's just that, say you go up to 10 playpoints, but you can only use like 9 on that turn. So that's really confusing. The wording's not very clear, and I don't really have much of reference that I could check, I think. So yeah, I'm totally confused about this card. But okay, so assuming that you are actually gaining +1 playpoints still at the start of your turn, so you could actually, like if you play this on turn 3, you could actually still hit 10 play points, then it's pretty good. I'm assuming it works that way, otherwise it's kind of stupid if it doesn't. Yeah, no one would ever play this card otherwise. So assuming it works like that, then it's pretty good. It's like you're using an insight every turn, and this is going to be able to activate your avarice. All your avarice cards are going to be active for the rest of the game if you play this early. It's kind of similar to Cradle, that we currently already have, and Cradle's pretty good in the slow control Natura blood. So I could see this being played in a similar deck, a control deck like that, and using like the Cradle effect to kill your opponent because you just get the extra ping damage. It also works super well with Ravenous Corruption. Ravenous Corruption. So yeah, this card I think is really good, assuming that you are actually gaining 1 play point. The Unselfish Grace is also pretty good because once you hit countdown to 0, you're going to start off your turn with the Losing Temperance on your board, and you could start using your lead. You could reduce your opponent's leader by a lot if you have a lot of self-pinging damage. So you'll be using Unselfish Grace if you're playing like a Wrath deck, I guess. It's kind of weird. This is a control card for sure, because max defense by 3. So if you're burning your opponent, the max defense doesn't really matter. So it really works when you do no damage to your opponent at all. So you're just reducing their max health instead of their actual health. So they're both control cards, but if you're playing a more Wrath version, I guess you'd be going for the Grace, because it's also healing you. But if you're playing like an Avarice version, you're going to be playing this most of the time. And I think this is going to be more popular because we already see Spider Blood and Natural Blood, and those decks are kind of good right now. We're just waiting for Machina Blood to rotate out. But yeah, so otherwise I think I have to give this card like a, okay, assuming a Satire Desire actually you still gain +1 play point. I think this is cards like a 4.5 out of 5. It looks super strong. Unlike the other numbered legendary class cards, there's no RNG effect to it. So I think it's going to be a really consistent card, and you're of course going to play 3 copies of this card in your control style Bloodcraft deck. Next off we have Darhold Abyssal Contract. 4 play point 4/3, evolves to 6/5. Fanfare: if Wrath is active for you, destroy an enemy follower, then deal 3 damage to the enemy leader. Evolve, deal 3 damage to your leader, summon a Dire Bond. And the Dire Bond, if you don't know, this is an OG card. Deal 6 damage to your leader. At the start of your turn, restore 2 defense and draw a card. But because it summons it from this, it won't activate the Fanfare ability, I believe. So looking at this card, the original Fanfare effect isn't that great, I think, because Wrath has to be active for you. So Wrath is dealing 7 damage to your leader. I'm doing 7 instances of self-pinging damage to your leader. So you're not going to be able to play this on turn 4 and destroy an enemy follower and deal 3 damage to your enemy leader. That would be super powerful if you could consistently do that on turn 4, but I think it's pretty much impossible. It's very unlikely that you could have Wrath active by your turn 4, so this is probably going to be like a turn, like maybe turn 6, turn 7, or later than that to get the Fanfare active. If you do end up playing this early, like turn 4 or turn 5, you could get a Dire Bond. Now, Dire Bond, this is pretty good because you're dealing 3 damage to yourself to get the Dire Bond instead of 6, and you're recovering 6 health. So you're +3 in health over 3 turns, and you're going to be able to draw 3 cards in your deck. So this, of course, this is still going to be a control style Bloodcraft card, and yeah, it works with like ravenous corruption. I do still feel like a avarice deck is just a lot better than Wrath in terms of how the mechanics work. So I'm not that much of a fan of this card. Yeah, and also when you evolve this on turn 4, it's not actually affecting your opponent's board that much. You're just going to be able to draw cards. And I don't know, it's like all you need is this card and the Insatiable Desire. You don't really need how much card draw do you want? Like, your hand's going to get too full, I think, if you're playing like a control style Bloodcraft deck and you have all of these effects that draws you extra cards. Like, you're going to have to stuff your deck with a lot of cheap cards. Like, even natural blood already, sometimes your hand could get kind of full, and it's kind of hard to dump cards in your hand. Yeah, so I don't think this card is too good. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It really depends. Like, I might look at their Bloodcraft cards and might think this card's better, but right now, like, Wrath isn't that great. I think Avarice is just a better mechanic for Bloodcraft at the moment. So with Machina Blood going away, I think Avarice is going to be a bit better. But let's look at their cards and see if Wrath is going to get better. So next off we have Vampire of Calamity. 7 play point 7/7 evolves to 9/9. Accelerate 1, deal 1 damage to your leader, deal 2 damage to an enemy follower. Rush, Fanfare, if Wrath is active for you, deal 4 damage to an enemy, and restore 4 defense to your leader. Okay, I really like this card. It's very similar to a really old Bloodcraft card, which was a 7 play point 4/4 with Storm, and then you restored 4 defense to your leader if Vengeance was active for you. This is just a similar version, but a bit better. Wrath does have to be active for you, but the Accelerate 1 is actually really nice. Deal 1 damage to your leader, so this is a card that supports Wrath, and it's a decent Accelerate 1 effect. Deal 2 damage to a follower. It's just like soft removal, and the 7 play point ability is quite strong. Yeah, like, especially because it could go face too. This card is actually really powerful. I like this card a lot, and it does support Wrath as the archetype. I don't think that card alone is going to make this card that much better. It does make it a little bit better because you can add 3 cards that add 3 good Wrath cards into your deck. But yeah, for this card itself, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 for now. I think it could actually be a 5 out of 5 because it's a super strong card. Again, it's just going to depend how much good Wrath cards are going to be available where you can make a viable Wrath deck. But yeah, this card, it looks super solid. I like it. Has potential to be a 5 out of 5, but I'm going to give it 4.5 out of 5 for now just because I don't believe in Wrath that much. The next card, Contemptuous Demon, 2/2, evolves into a 4/4. Fanfare, if Wrath is active for you, gain the ability to evolve for 0 evil points. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to your leader. At the start of your turn, restore 2 defense to your leader. It's probably not going to survive for your next turn to restore 2 defense, but yeah, it's another way to activate your Wrath, I guess. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to your leaders. Okay, same ability there. During your turn, whenever your leader takes damage, deal 3 damage to a random enemy follower up to 10 times per turn. Okay, I don't know what is up to 10 times per turn. Are you ever going to ping yourself 10 times per turn? Probably not. But okay. So this is another good Wrath card. I guess, yeah, you kind of could commit to a full Wrath deck. There's quite a bit of 1 damage pings to yourself. So yeah, I'm actually going to be pretty interested in seeing if Avarice Blood or Wrath Blood is going to be better, because both of them seem like they have good cards. This card itself is like, for the rating of this card though, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. The reason is that it's just a solid 2-drop, and it could activate your Wrath, so that's its good side. The bad side is that, like, you can evolve it for 0 later on. But yeah, the evolve effect is just decent. I guess at the end of your turn, you could get just a bunch of ping damages to yourself. But yeah, I think it's a solid card. It's not going to be game breaking though, but it's just good support for your Wrath. So that's why it's just a 3.5 out of 5. Because it's not like this card. This card's like, it's pretty impactful, I think. Like the 7 play point cost and Accelerate 1 is both impactful. This is just kind of like one of your good 2-drops that most decks have good 2-drops. So this is kind of like one of them. So 3.5 out of 5, I say. Okay, so moving into Havencraft, we got 8 Sophina Strength. Accelerate 2, summon a Somnolent Strength, for 5 play points. Fanfare, give all other allied followers +1/+1 and ward. While his followers in play, all allied followers in play and that come into play can't take more than 3 damage at a time. While his followers in play, same effect. So the Somnolent Strength is a 2 play point amulet, countdown 3. At the end of your turn, give +0/+2 to a random allied follower. Last words, give -2 to a random enemy follower. Okay, so another numbered legendary that doesn't have a random effect. So they're breaking their give every legendary a random effect, but I guess I can support that. So the Accelerate 2 is like okay. You're getting +6 health and stats over 3 turns on your followers. I would have liked to see this card give ward to that follower as well, but maybe that would be too broken. The last words effect is like meh. But I think you mainly are playing this card for the 5 play point because the 2/6 is not bad, evolves into a 4/8, and it gives all other allied followers +1/+1 ward. So if you have a decent board already, so if you're buffing like 2 or 3 followers, I think it's really good value, and they're getting ward. Not only are they getting +1/+1 and ward, but it's also going to just be protecting this card. And this card has a like an aura effect where as long as it's on the board, you're getting kind of a value, I guess. Can't take more than 3 damage at a time. I guess later into the game when you have bigger units, this is going to be kind of annoying for your opponent to deal with. But in the early game when you curve this out, maybe the 3 damage doesn't matter as much. But yeah, later into the game, I think this card could be really annoying if you get big wards. And yeah, wow, I'm kind of surprised that they're supporting Ward Haven again. Because this is definitely for a Ward Haven deck. But it might fit into other decks as well. It's also just a solid card, like giving everything on your board +1/+1 on the fanfare. It's just a decent card overall. I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5 just because I think it's a very great card. I just don't think it's like super powerful or so from what I've seen from other of the numbered legendary cards, it's not as like it's not a wow effect that I get from the other numbered cards. So I think it's a solid card and it's going to find a place in some kind of Haven deck, but for me it's just going to be a 4 out of 5. Next up with Lisa, Lux Flash Spear, 3 play point, 2/2, falls into a 4/4. Fanfare, the next time this follower takes damage, reduce that damage to 0. Enhance 6, randomly summon a copy of one of the highest cost allied followers that had ward when they were destroyed this match. Whenever an allied follower with ward is destroyed, gain +2/+2. Whenever an allied follower is destroyed, gain +2/+2. Okay, so this card combos really well with Sophina Strength now, actually. Now, does this make Sophina Strength a higher rating than 4? Maybe it could go up to 4.5, but around that range. But looking at this card, so when you play it for 3, it's quite weak, honestly. It's like Divine Shield, 2/2. It's like okay. It's like a okay card for a 3-drop. It's not. I would say because of the fanfare ability, it's going to be average stats. You're mainly going to be playing this for the enhanced 6 because you get to summon. It summons the highest cost allied follower that had ward. So you're getting pretty good value with this. If you're playing like Sophina on 5, this card won't have ward. So unfortunately, you won't get it off the Saralissa if you play this right after on turn 6. But yeah, assuming So if you play this right on turn 6, you're probably going to be able to get like a 3-drop or a 4-drop, depending on what Safina buffs, or like depending on what your deck is, you might just have naturally good, like a really strong turn 5 ward card that it could resummon. And so that just that effect alone is pretty good for enhanced 6 in my opinion. It's pretty similar to reanimate though. Is this part of the enhanced 6 effect? I think this is just a regular effect, so it's not part of enhanced 6, right? So whenever an allied follows wars, destroy, gain +2/+2. So that itself is actually really good. This could actually be a turn 3 4/4. Now that I think about it, because if you're going first, and this card is actually really strong if you're going first, because if you play like a 2-drop ward, and then turn 3 you play this and trade your 2-drop ward, and this goes up to a 4/4 with the reduce effect, that's super powerful, honestly. Assuming this is not part of the enhanced 6 ability, otherwise I think it would be on this part of the sentence. It's kind of separated, so that's why I think it's separated. So yeah, thinking about that now, that's actually so strong. And yeah, enhanced 6 is going to bring out a ward, so it's pretty much going to be guaranteed a 4/4. It's always gained this effect. I think this card's super strong, and it's definitely better than the numbered legendary Safina. They do synergize really well, but this card alone is a lot more powerful. I think this card's actually like a 5 out of 5, because it could gain you so much tempo if you're playing a Ward Haven deck. Yeah, I really like this card. Assuming this is not part of enhanced 6. If it is part of enhanced 6, it's a bit lower rating, but this card, yeah, the effect is super strong, and with a proper build, I think this could work really well. 5 out of 5. Next up, we have Revised Educator. 5 play point 2/3 evolves to 4/5. So it has Ward, Fanfare, restore 2 defense to your leader, draw a card. During your turn, whenever your leader's defense is restored, summon a Snake Priestess. Ward, evolve effect, restore 2 defense to your leader. During your turn, whenever your leader's defense is restored, summon a Snake Priestess. And then Snake Priestess, the 2 play point 1/3 ward. So when you play this on turn 5, you're actually activating an effect by itself. You get the Snake Priestess, which I guess kind of makes sense because it's pretty low statted. It's a 5 play point 2/3, and you get the Snake Priestess. So one thing that I want to point out is that these things are at 3 health. The Snake Priestess is also at 3 health. But they go well with Safina because Safina's going to give them +1. So they're going to become 4 health now. And they can't take more than 3 damage at a time. So that means like the Revised Educator and the Snake Priestess needs 2 hits before they could die. Assuming Safina doesn't die before them. And normally Safina should survive longer than these because these have ward. So unless a spell could remove it. So like, this card I think is pretty good. I just don't like the fact that it's going to be your turn 5 you play this, right? And after that you're going to be playing Salisa. So Salisa is going to summon Revised Educator again, which is just a 2/3. It's not too impressive. But I guess what you could do is it's actually bringing this back is actually quite good, because you could just evolve this card and it's going to restore your leader and summon a Snake Priestess. So if you play this on 6 and summon this, evolve it, you're going to get 3 followers out, 2 of them with ward, and those are going to be able to buff up your Salisa. So that's actually looking really powerful. I just don't know if these stats are just too low to be as strong as I'm thinking it's going to be. Because turn 5 of 4/5 is not really great stats. It might not even trade well on the board. So it depends how the meta game is going to be like. But this card I think is overall pretty good. It's going to help you spam out wards, especially later in the game when you could combo it with stuff. And with cards like Wilbert active as well, it's going to be quite decent, I think. But yeah, I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5. Maybe it could possibly be a 4.5 out of 5. Yeah, I just think it's a strong card. It's just that the stats are kind of weak. It's just barely good enough stats, I think. If it was +1/+1 more, I think it'd be really good. It'd probably be 5 out of 5 if it's a 3/4. But yeah, this is just barely cutting it to be an okay card, but I think it's just balanced enough, I think. So that makes it like a 4 out of 5. Next up we have Lorena Iron Priest, 3, play point 2/3, evolves to 4/5. Fanfare, put a holy water into your hand during your turn when defense is restored to your leader. If it's the second time this turn, gain the ability to evolve for 0 evo points. Okay, and if you evolve it, deal X damage to enemy follower. X equals the attack of the allied follower with the highest attack in play. Okay, and her holy water is this one. Restored 2 defense to an ally. Draw a card. So playing this on turn 3, you get holy water, which is pretty... Holy water itself is actually a really good card. This card could either synergize with an Elana's deck. So you could put this in Elana's. It also synergizes what we recently saw, Revisted Educator. We might actually see like an Elana's Ward Haven deck. Because we're seeing a lot of ward support, and we're also seeing some healing support, which is going to keep Elana's good. So I feel like Ward Haven is going to be Elana Ward Haven. This effect where you could evolve for 0 is alright. I think in the mid to late game you're going to be able to activate this quite easily to get the free evil. And yeah, the evolve effect is pretty good. So this card I think is just overall super good card. In terms of the stat lines and how it's going to fit in decks, I don't see any downside with it. Maybe if it was a 3/3 it'd be better, but 3/3 would be too strong. Yeah, I'm going to say this is like a 5 out of 5 because like this one was only a 4 out of 5 because of the stats. This one I think is fairly good, decent stats. It's average stats, plus you're getting a holy water, which synergizes well with your deck, and it has a good evil. So yeah, I think this could be justified as a 5 out of 5 card. So the last card I'm going to be talking about in today's video, 4 Pillar Tortoise, 3 play point 1/4, evolves into a 3/6. Ward, Fanfare, randomly put a 4 play point Havencraft follower or amulet from your deck into your hand. Evolved Ward. 4 play point Havencraft follower, so this card could find your Elana's. You might actually, because from what we've seen so far, we don't actually see any 4-cost cards, and that's actually something that you could look out for. Is that this card doesn't seem that impressive at first, but it could be a way to just guarantee draw you Elana's on turn 4. So you could just build your deck, because we're losing Lamonia too. So if you're playing like Elana's Ward Haven, this is a great card actually to pick up Elana's. With that being said, it's also just a ward, so it does kind of fit in with your synergy. Yeah, like if you're trying to find Elana's every time, this card is going to find you Elana's every time, I think. I think that's the purpose of this card. But 1/4 on turn 3 is not the greatest stats. It's kind of underwhelming, but in Ward Haven, the health is kind of important. You can always buff the attack with Elana's later. I'm going to give this card a 3.5 out of 5 just because the attack's a bit low. If it was a 2/3, I think it'd be a lot better. But I think this card will be played just because some decks are probably going to build it so it only draws Elana's. So yeah, 3.5 out of 5 just because it's not like... It's just a solid card in finding your key cards if you're building your deck that way. But stat line is kind of underwhelming and could be a bit clunky, so yeah. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. In the back of my head, I feel like I'm being a little bit inconsistent in some card ratings, but let me know in the comments down below what you think about these cards, and do you agree with what I said or disagree? And if there was anything that I missed out, make sure you comment down below. I'm hopefully read the cards correctly this time, so I think I had valid points on the cards. But yeah, let me know if I made any mistakes. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more Shadowverse content, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.